This episode, we are going to get the doors off the car, brace them so that we can lift the frame and the car onto the rotisserie and start working on the sills. First things first, we got to get the doors off, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make a plate for here, a plate for here, and we're going to make a plate here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to weld some 1x1 tubing from here to the top and from here to the bottom. So let's get that going now. Now that the doors are off, I am going to make a set of plates to go one here and one here, and I'm going to make another plate to go here, and then we are going to attach some metal across here and diagonally across there, and then we'll also go diagonally across that way and down this way to keep everything nice and square. So let's get started making those plates. Now that I've got the plates bolted on here and here on both sides, what we're going to do is we're going to cut some 1x1 tubing, and we're going to run a piece from here to here and from here to here. So let's do that. So what I've done now is I've just put these pieces in place here on both sides with a couple clamps, just holding them in place. And I am going to weld those to the plates. And I've kind of left myself room so that if need be, I got to raise that a tiny bit, I can unbolt this from the body. And that makes that easy. So I just have to raise that in just a tiny bit, and away we go. Let's weld. that's welded, we are going to get the hoist back in place, lift the car, and mount it onto the rotisserie. Well, I have mounted the body of the car onto my hoist. I know that it takes the weight and it's balanced, so I just got it, a little bit off of the jacks. So let's get the rotisserie in place and start drilling holes in the mounting bracket so that we can attach it to those brackets or mounts that I made at the front and the back of the car earlier. Right, so what I got to do is I have to drill a pair of holes here that are going to match what I've got in my front section here and at the back. So let's get to that. Worst case scenario, weld it. All right then, that is the car on the rotisserie. Is it perfect? Is it level? Yeah, the frame's level. Everything else is good. It's secure, and I should be able to work on it now. So I think, yeah. Now that I've got the body onto the rotisserie, I've got here a really cheap set of hammers and dollies, etc., for doing body work. Now the only problem with these is, yeah, they came from the factory with sharp edges on them. They're not rounded. The faces are definitely not smooth, and for what they are cheap. A cheap set. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to prep these for actually doing body work. Now, I don't pretend to know really what I'm doing, so I did a YouTube search and found a couple videos, and I need to polish these surfaces. So that I do know how to do. So let's get started cleaning these up. The other thing I have here is a very old 2.5 pound dumbbell. This thing is well older than I am, and I'm I was born in the late 1900s, but it has really good surfaces. And again, these I'm going to polish and clean up. So let's get started on that. So, as you can see here, the quality of these are really not so great. I need to get them cleaned up and polished so that I can use them. A couple of them I'm just not going to bother because I really can't see myself using them. But the ones that I either don't have a good copy of or need to be cleaned, I'll clean. First things first, I've got a belt sander here with a disc on this side. I've got an 80 grit on here. I've got a fairly fresh 120 grit and then a really worn out 120 grit. I'm going to use the really worn out 120 grit because I don't have a 220 grit. So it's close. I have also some regular sandpaper in progressively finer sandpaper, all the way up to I think about 600 grit. Then I'm going to move on to the buffing wheel where I will buff these to a high polish. So first things first, let's knock off any rust. Let's get rid of any major high spots. Reshape with this disc and then progressively move to finer discs on it. So let's do that. So what I've done here is I've used a pretty aggressive grit sandpaper on my belt sander to get all the high spots to even out all of the metal. A lot of these parts really were not the greatest. You can sort of see with the slapper there that there's still an edge that I didn't grind down all the way. I mean, I'd have no material left if I did. So this, I've just basically cleaned them all up and gotten them ready for a finer sandpaper, which I'll move on to now. So what I'm doing now is I'm just giving it a hand sanding for a bit more control and to get rid of some of the scratches that the belt sander left. This is a 240 grit paper. I'm now moving on to I guess it's a rough sanding disc or a medium sanding disc, just to get some random swirl in there and try and get rid of some of those linear lines. And now I've moved on to a fine disc. So I'm really getting that surface ready to move over to the buffer and give it a really good high polish. Now, as I move forward here, you can see that I'm using a buffing wheel on my grinder, and I keep putting extra paste on there in order to get a nice polish. Okay then, so yeah, as you can see, I went through and I polished all of these up. Um, so they they kind of look a bit better than they did before. Uh, a lot better than they did before. They're actually flat now. So this gives me the ability to actually not mar the metal as I'm working with it. Um, you know, I on such as or this hammer, this one here has a completely flat surface, and what I did is I radiused the edges as well as the corners on it, so that as I'm hitting, I'm not like getting I'm not digging in. I did the same all the way around on all of them. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a nice soft edge now on it. Um, the other one that I did, which was this old 2.5 pound weight, I was going to do both sides, but it had a pretty. This is a cast weight, so or it's stamped actually. It looks like it was forged. It's got a seam on it, so it would have been forged, but the ends weren't perfect. So this end was pretty good, and I gave it a pretty good polish, and I radiused the edge on that. Um, this one and this one, not as much polishing on it. Just because I probably won't be using this half puck a lot since I have this. Um, this one, however, it wasn't all the way to the edge, so I actually brought it around further, as well as I gave this a nice soft radius here where it was kind of sharp before. Kind of took a little bit off the edges as well, so this will make a nice curved backing piece for hammering. So that gets me ready now to actually start doing some of the body work. So that's what we're going to start to get into now that we're at that stage. So I hope you'll be sticking around for that. We'll be doing a lot of the underbody first because I really don't know what I'm doing. So I want to practice using these tools and doing sheet metal work and doing welding on stuff that you're not going to see. That way, by time I get to doing the fender flares and repairing the parts of the body that you will see, hopefully I'll be a bit better than I am now, and the car will only require very little Bondo to smooth out the mess that I make. So anyways, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too, and yeah, thank you so much for sticking around. Well, that's all I've got time for this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. Please, like, subscribe, and notification bell. And I will be getting these videos out as I can work on them. So thank you so much, and see you next time.